Editorial reason for concern. In an AIMS study, it was found that Delta variant, D variant, beats vaccine for single and double dose. That is, the study found that if you even administer vaccine for single dose or for even two dose, that D variant beats that vaccine. In another study by National Center for Disease Control and INCASOG, it was found that recent upsurge, second wave in Delhi, was due to Delta variant. Was due to Delta variant. INCASOG. INCASOG is a consortium of 10 national institutions. Consortia of 10 national level institutions. What used to happen? What happens actually, that many institutions of different states, they get data, but that different data is not presented a whole picture. So therefore, what government did, that government made a consortium of 10 national level institutions which will take the data from every state and they collate their findings and diagnostics with the actual data, and then the whole picture is presented. So it will help in more integrated presentation of data. So this INCASOG, this is national level, and NCDC, they present in a study found that second wave in Delhi was due to D variant. So therefore it correlates clinical diagnostics and collects samples from states. So there is a need to strengthen this INCASOG mechanism. So therefore 17 new institutions are being added to this consortium. 17 new institutions are being added. And as Delta variant has been declared by WHO as variant of concern, any variant is given the tag of variant of concern if it satisfied three conditions. Decrease in effectiveness, decrease in effectiveness of diagnostics, that is difficult to diagnose, therapeutics, and decrease in effectiveness of vaccines, plus increase transmittability. Variant which fulfills these conditions is termed as variant of concern. So Delta variant is a variant of concern. So what government should do? It should share more data. If more data is shared, then this INCASOG will give more good picture. It will correlate clinical diagnostics and collect samples from the states. and government should heed to scientific advice. So this was the editorial reason for concern. Editorial: share, collaborate, inoculate. US has agreed to waive IPR on vaccine formula. And BRICS has given a text which is revisioned to waive TRIPS provision with respect to vaccines of COVID. So these are the two positive things, that US has agreed to waive IPR on vaccine formula. IPR is intellectual property right, so therefore US is not demanding, US companies will not demand intellectual property for the discovery of the vaccines. So the prices will get reduced and monopoly of that company to produce vaccine will not be there. And BRICS in the revised text has proposed to waive TRIPS provision with respect to vaccines. So TRIPS is trade related intellectual property. So BRICS have waived this TRIPS provision. So these are the two positive things. Prices of the vaccine will reduce out, production of the vaccines will be more in different parts of the world, and therefore demand supply gap will be less. So US has agreed, so therefore what are the positives? That even the countries which want to manufacture mRNA based vaccine, they can now easily manufacture without the repercussions of any legal angle. As in the case of, say, Pune based Genova Pharmaceuticals. It is biopharmaceuticals. So this company wants to manufacture vaccine based on mRNA, and US has agreed to waive all the IPR on vaccine formula with respect to Pfizer Moderna technology, that you don't use this technology but you can use everything and you can produce the mRNA based vaccine. So therefore it will help companies like Genova Biopharmaceuticals, as in case of India and elsewhere in the world, which wants to manufacture the vaccines. So what are the macro perspectives? That companies can manufacture, and what are the micro perspective? Micro perspective is that there is a, see, if any nation wants to produce vaccines, it needs to have specialized production capacities. Specialized production capabilities, specialized raw material, small equipments, specialized ingredients. These are largely provided to the world by US or EU based companies. So what happens if US, as done in recent past, invokes Defense Production Act? US invoked the Defense Production Act and this act prohibits to supply raw material to other countries. So therefore, even if they've agreed to waive IPR on vaccine formula, the country still cannot make the vaccines because they don't have these kind of things which are supplied by US, and US is not supplying to them. But after that, US has now been ready to supply these raw materials. So this is the micro perspective. Second, BRICS. They waived the TRIPS provision for 3 years. So these two are a positive signal to the world. So best course of action will be mutually agreed contracts between whom? Between the company which is manufacturing the vaccines, who have the patent rights, and between the company who wants to manufacture that vaccine or in their respective regions. So mutually agreed contract should be there. Vista in perspective. So the idea to build a new Parliament House was conceived in 2012 by then Lok Sabha Speaker Meera Kumar. Overall, what are the things in favor, in support to build new parliament? That there is overcrowding, political parties fight for space, for offices, damp ceilings, and building is fire prone. According to the author, there is counter argument that why we need to demolish and why we need to build a new building instead. Completely build a new building, not demolish, but completely build an entirely new parliament. Why not redevelop the old? As in counter argument that redevelop old parliament building. This is the case envisioned by British. They want to redevelop the already present Westminster Palace. But the point is this, that the cost of redevelopment is itself more than the cost of building a new one. So therefore, redevelopment cost is more. So this is the counter argument which is negated. Concerns. What are the concerns? That trees will be felled, green lawns will be cemented, buildings will be bulldozed. These are the concerns. But according to the author, if such things are misinformation, that itself has to do with the government, because the government was not in transparent, no transparency in giving tender, and there was no public consultations. So the government is itself to blame. Now the present government gives the arguments that why it needs a new parliament building. For close location of different offices. Different offices of different ministries will be simultaneously close to each other, and therefore there will be more synergy, more coordination. So therefore, more coordination and the use of new infrastructure like internet. In new parliament there will be better infrastructure like some equipments, big equipments of internet. So therefore every ministry can use it. So these are the arguments put forward by the government. But still the questions arises. Questions regarding to bulldoze buildings. The buildings which have on which there have been spent a lot of amount in the preceding few years, either to renovate them, either to make them from the start. Example, Indira Gandhi Center for Performing Arts, National Museum, Jawaharlal Nehru Bhavan, Vigyan Bhavan. So these are the arguments put forward by the author. Editorial origin uncleared. Origin of the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 can be from two sources. Either it is of natural origin or it is bioengineered. If it is of natural origin, then from natural source there can be spillover to humans. Take for the example SARS and MERS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, Middle East respiratory syndrome. In both these two cases, it was assumed that natural host is bad, then there is intermediary host, then that infection traveled to humans. In case of SARS, natural host was found to be horseshoe bat. Intermediary host was found to be civet cat. And finally humans. In MERS, intermediary host was found to be dromedary camels. While these two have been found when the SARS outbreak took place in 2003 and when MERS took place in 2012. So intermediary hosts were found, civet cat and dromedary camel respectively. But it took years to find the original host, horseshoe bat. Even in the case of Ebola outbreak, no natural host of Ebola virus are found. So these presents an example that if it is of natural origin, natural hosts are very difficult to be found. And in case of bioengineered, if it is bioengineered, the example is cited is furin cleavage. This term refers to the site of the virus. Let's say this is the furin cleavage, the site through which it attaches to animal cells. So scientists or people claim that this site has been bioengineered, but this furin cleavage is also found in many types of virus also. Not only it is limited to SARS-CoV-2. So we cannot conclusively say that it is bioengineered also. And there is another theory also that three science three scientists from Wuhan lab got ill, but for that to prove we need to make sure that these scientists got ill from Wuhan lab itself, and that too from SARS-CoV-2, which is difficult. SARS was first identified in 2003 from China, and from China it spread to other 4 countries. Symptoms associated with SARS: fever, dry cough, headache, muscle ache. And it is severe acute respiratory syndrome, and it is caused by coronavirus, which is called as SARS-CoV. So it was the first SARS-CoV, and therefore the term SARS-CoV-2 for the present one. And MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. In many cases it is asymptomatic. Symptoms include, and main symptom, difficulty in breathing. Same symptoms, if symptoms comes, difficulty in breathing, headache, etc. It was first reported in 2012 in Saudi Arabia. And as I have told, the intermediary host of SARS was civet cat, and intermediary host of MERS was dromedary camel. Editorial. The world is hardly wired for cyber resilience. To name few cyber attacks: first, SolarWinds. This cyber attack was on US various departments. It was accused that it is Russian sponsored cyber attack. Cyber attack by a group Hafnium, which is Chinese group. These are the examples you can quote in mains answer. Phishing attack on 3000 emails. Ransomware on Colonial Pipeline. Ransomware on JBS SA. JBS SA is a Brazilian meat processing industry, US subsidiary of that meat processing industry. US subsidiary of Brazilian industry. Colonial Pipeline, this company gives oil supply to US. This ransomware or Colonial Pipeline, this was assumed to be sponsored by Russia, East Europe. So these are some famous names of the cyber attacks. There is a term called zero-day attack. It refers to cripples the system plus lie undetected for a very long time. An example of zero-day software was Stuxnet, which almost crippled the Iran's uranium enrichment program. Problems with respect to cyber attacks, that it stretches the resources, increase or stretches resources of the government, finance of the government. There is a blur distinction between the target on the military infrastructure and civilian infrastructure. So therefore, thin difference between military and civilian target. That if I am a cyber attacker, then I want to attack some facility. So it is more strategic for military or it is most strategic for civilian. That distinction is very thin. So difficult for the government to classify this and make according strategy. Attack on data related to healthcare. This is a sensitive data. Now the cyber attackers are specifically targeting the healthcare of the country in which they steal the health related data of the individuals. Now which countries are good equipped to solve this problem or to put a check on cyber attacks? The countries which are good in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, they have an edge, while the other developing countries don't have that much edge. So what are the possible solutions? Aware businesses, so they take the proper strategy. Increase overall awareness and put pressure on boards in public domain through newspaper or through many mechanisms. Put the pressure on company boards. So they adopt a cyber resilience strategy. Now there is a thing called zero trust based environment. This zero trust based environment, they has the zero trust on network through which data is coming, zero trust on the identity, endpoint device. So this zero trust based environment, various companies are specialized in producing the products relating to this, in which they assume that they don't have trust on the network, identity and endpoint devices. So therefore they build a more cyber attack resilient products. So but the problem is that are governments ready to use that? So governments should look into this. This is other possible solution. And there is data cycle. which consist of three phases. Data at rest, data in motion, and data in use. Data at rest means data is being created or stored. Data in motion means data is being transferred from across the network. Data in use means data is being consumed. So this is the different thing in editorial. This was all about the world is hardly wired for cyber resilience, but I want to make few things clear. Like phishing. What is phishing? Phishing is sending communication either mostly through mails. That if I am doing phishing, I am sending fake mails to the persons, which has that characteristics that it will assumed that it will be looked at that it is coming from an authentic source. So you, by seeing that mail, you will think that it is from the authentic source and you will fill your data. If then I get your data and I can make a theft into your bank account or something. So this is called phishing. And what is spear phishing? See, phishing is that I am giving this mails to everybody. This is phishing. Spear phishing means I am targeting any individual or any organization. This is spear phishing. Next thing is whaling. Whaling means I am phishing to some specific senior executives or some heads of the organization. If I am doing phishing targeting at that individuals, then it is called whaling. Next thing is wishing. It is voice phishing through phone calls. If I am making phone calls and want to get some information, credentials of yours, that this is wishing. And smishing. This is SMS phishing through messages. If I am sending you a text and that text contains a link or it wants to get some data from you, this is called smishing. Next thing is ransomware. Ransomware is I am sending you some virus which infects your organization and you cannot access your own organization files. And if you want to access, then I will demand ransom. I want $1 billion. Then only I will unlock this device. Then you are bound to give me ransom, a hefty ransom to access your files. This is called ransomware. Planning for a biosecure future. Planning for a biosecure future. Synthetic biology. Synthetic biology is a technology which is a double-edged sword. It has some positives and risk associated, that is negative. Synthetic biology is the creation of new organism or modifying an existing organism. So what are the positives for human betterment? To treat diseases, synthetic biology is used. Negatives is misuse. Poor trained staff. Accidental leakage. Lack of protocol. Among the weapons of mass destructions, nuclear, chemical, and biological. Nuclear weapon of mass destruction has been given a lot of attention, most, and the least attention have been given to the biological weapon of mass destruction. Compare this. If you compare the regulation of nuclear, it is highly regulated. While biological is least regulated. A treaty called as Biological and Toxin Weapon Convention 1972. This treaty is there with regard to biological weapon of mass destruction, and it came into force in 1975. This treaty prohibits, what it prohibits? Stockpiling, transfer, use, development, production and acquisition of biological and toxic weapons. This treaty prohibits, but this problems with regard to this treaty is that it has no implementing body. And it permits biodefense research, but forbids bioweapons. Because of the problem that there is a very thin line which separates the biodefense and bioweapons. So this is a problem that it on the one hand permits the research and on the other hand bans this, but this has very thin line. So therefore it is very difficult to separate these two. And India's problems with respect to this. That India has poor disease surveillance, so therefore very difficult to find the bioweapons if present actually, and less coordination among departments. For example, implementation of biosafety guidelines is under the purview of Ministry of Science and Technology and Ministry of Environment, and the setting up of research labs is under ICMR and ICAR, Indian Council of Medical Research and Indian Council of Agricultural Research, which is under the Ministry of Agriculture, and this is under the Ministry of Health. So see, there is less coordination. This is scattered among the different ministries.